What? Oh yeah, I made a video for the occasion. It's about to start. Am I missing something? No, I'm not gonna have my first beer! I'm not even interested in drinking! Fine, I'll get the apple juice. That's close enough, right? This has been a topic I've wanted to cover for a while now. If each year of Bionicle that has been created are akin to TV seasons, we would have 12, which is a lot of material to consider. We all have points in Bionicle's history we prefer over others, whether it's because of the story, characters, sets, or even nostalgic memories, usually reflecting certain years, and I'll be ranking my favorites. Now, as I implied in that last paragraph, this is a very personal list and it's far from objective, so our favorites will most likely differ in certain ways. Feel free to give your own list down below. Anyway, there isn't that much when it comes to rules. I'll be considering both G1 and G2 and discussing what I liked and disliked about each year. What makes a good year of Bionicle for me personally are the sets, characters, story, and personal connection I have. However, if there are any other aspects that caught my eye, I will bring them up. Also, spoilers are all over the place. You've been warned. With all that out of the way, let's begin. Even though I said at the beginning that this list is subjective, I think most of us can agree about this year's placing. For me at least, and likely many others, Bionicle 2010 was one of the biggest disappointments I had ever experienced. Here's what my first reaction was when I first saw the sets at Walmart. Huh? Smaller versions of established characters? That's unexpected. Well, maybe this is just a side thing. Something for the 10-year celebration. This shouldn't be all that they have for the first wave of this year. And here is my first reaction when I first discovered that this was all they had. Okay, it didn't go quite like that, but you get my point. This was all that we were getting? This was the last hurrah for Bionicle? 6 measly Avatar-sized sets? Now, to be fair, looking back, I don't think all these sets were horrible. These sets came with some pretty nice pieces, with one even being used for a certain iconic mock. But these didn't impress me that much back in the day, and I only ended up getting 3 of these, those being Gresh, Paraka, and Takanuva. Even now, they're still not that impressive, even if I would consider them a step up from most Avatar-sized sets. I think we all know by now that Bionicle was supposed to last for at least a few more years, with talks of a new film trilogy, new characters, a plan of robotic dinosaurs, and much more. But sales had been declining for a while now, so LEGO decided to stop while they were ahead before they ran the series into the ground and lost too much money. And because of this, well, you know what we got. And this wouldn't be the last time something like this happened, but we'll get to that soon enough. I can't blame the Bionicle team for this rushed mess too much, as I'm sure they wanted to do better, but it's still disappointing nevertheless. Now, was there any good that came from this year? Well, I would think so. While I personally found the golden armor a bit too out of the blue and Deus Ex Machina for my tastes, and most of the characters were quite lacking due to the rushed plot, I can at least appreciate how LEGO tried wrapping up most of the loose ends when it came to the main story, talking about how Midna was made, what caused the disaster on Barra Magna, along with other details. In fact, this story actually made Midna a more interesting character for me. Also, Makuta getting hit in the head by a falling moon? You gotta admit, that's one heck of a way to kill off your main antagonist. So satisfying. Finally, I should give credit to Greg Farsty for trying to continue the story with the Bionicle serials, fleshing out the story and characters better than 2010's main story did, before LEGO had him work on other projects. Come on, you can at least let him finish? But in the end, 2010 was still a large disappointment for a series we held so dear to our hearts. We wanted an epic finale, but all we got was a pitiful death. Speaking of which, Told you we'd be getting here soon enough. Okay, as someone who enjoyed Bionicle G2 more than others, even I can't deny its shortcomings, especially with 2016. Before we get to said shortcomings, I do want to bring up what I think 2016 did right, which pushed it up slightly higher than 2010 for me. The biggest compliment I can give 2016 are the sets. I really enjoyed what LEGO did with 2015, and they built upon that for 2016. While I personally prefer the designs of the Toa from the previous year more, the designers did a decent job at evolving their overall design, sort of like the Toa Mata turning into the Toa Nuva. Speaking of evolving, I was actually pretty impressed with the experimentation. While most of the sets lacked the gearbox, save for Akimu, for the first time in Bionicle's history, we got waist articulation, which felt like a natural evolution for both posability and playability. This was something of a theme the designers tried to do for G2 in general. There were a bunch of other play features found in these sets, like the flapping wings for Akir and Uxar, opening and closing hands for Umarak the Hunter, and a puppet tail for Storm Beast. Listen, I'm not gonna lie and say that all the new play features were executed the best. In X, sometimes it was a detriment to the set's design, but I can at least appreciate the effort. Also, I'll just say that at least in my opinion, they executed the idea of putting a smaller character onto the back of a larger character better than what was done in 2008. When a creature went onto a Toa's back, it felt like a true boost of power, an upgrade. And when it came to Tahu and Akir, so glorious. Sadly, while I did enjoy a good number of the sets, I really can't defend the rest of what 2016 had to offer. These were a lot of the same problems that 2015 had, which I'll be discussing when I get to that year, but they're still problems nevertheless. And in some ways, I would argue that some of these issues were worse in 2016, but one step at a time. First was a story, which was very lackluster, and that's putting it nicely. The first half of the story is almost exactly the same as the previous year, with the Toa having to find the elemental creatures, which they can then use to finally go to Mask Community, which will then allow them to find the Mask of Control. This just comes across as lazy as we just did the same thing a year prior. Now, yes, you could argue that the first few years of G1 had a lot of collecting and searching like this. Heck, 2001 and the first half of 2003 both had the Toa searching for masks. However, there are a few reasons why 2016's case is more egregious. At the very least, G1 made searching for the masks interesting, with various character interactions and challenges the Toa had to face, whether it be Makuda's forces or even themselves. Unlike those years though, finding the creatures in the Golden Mask of Unity took no time at all. Heck, Leiwa's the only one who faces any sort of real adversity during the search. If there aren't any obstacles trying to prevent the Toa from progressing, then it doesn't feel satisfying when they reach their goal. It's just, they got it. Guess it's time to move on to the next plot point. Whoa. Even when looking for the Golden Mask in 2015, the Toa at least had to deal with the Skull Spiders. Even putting my grievances with the laziness of finding the GMOUs to the side, the rest of the plot isn't really anything to write home about. Except maybe the rushed ending. Guess history really does repeat itself. I think most of us know by now that G2 wasn't selling well, so LEGO had to pull the plug before the theme's planned end came around the end of 2017. So that affected the ending, pulling in the prophecy trope. Now, as the 2015 animations hinted at, there was a prophecy that was established previously. However, when this prophecy was brought up in 2016, the way it was used not only felt forced and rushed, but it felt like an excuse for the poor ending, which in my opinion was even more lackluster than G1's ending. Now, yes, G1's ending was also rushed, but somehow G2's ending felt worse. Maybe it's because Makuda's G1 death was better. Yeah, that was it. Then we have the characters. Yeah, I forgot they were characters too. But in all seriousness, apart from Bahatsu, Leiwa, and maybe Umarak, the other characters barely had any personality whatsoever. At times it looked like there were hints of a personality, but those were few and far between. A lot of the characters just blend together, and it feels like just about every one of them could say the exact same line, with barely any differences. Except maybe Akimu. He's mostly just the exposition fairy. It gets worse when you realize that some of the characters were not even consistent with what little personality they had previously. Remember 2015 Bahatsu? Brooding, serious, and with a distinct hate of scorpions.
Scorpios.
Whatever. In 2016, well, he hates scorpions. That still counts, right? No. Gone is the brood, and all you have is someone who likes action and is occasionally grumpy. Why change it? It's not like he had a noticeable arc in the previous year that explained the sudden change in personality. These issues are only made even worse when looking at the TV show. Good gosh, I wanted to like this. This could have been it. The show that could have made G2 into something interesting. Something worth getting into. But instead we get mediocre at best storytelling, mostly non-existent characters, below average voice acting, a poor script, actually not that bad animation, and one of the worst and laziest endings I have ever seen. Even if the G1 Bionicle movies weren't perfect, I still pick those over this crap. Now the only reason why this isn't at the absolute bottom is that in the end, well, Bionicle is first and foremost a toy line, and I feel like LEGO did a much better job in that aspect than 2010 did. But I don't think it deserves any more than second to last. A disappointing end to a reboot that already disappointed so many. Also, I know you were rushed with Bionicle's sudden cancellation, but LEGO, please don't tease us with Makuta if you're not going to release him. You're not helping anything. I'm gonna be crucified for this, aren't I?
Oh no, this is horrible!
Are they gone? Good. Yeah, 2001. The year to start it all. The one that made many a fan barely made it into my top 10. Now, before I'm buried alive too, please let me explain my reasoning. I think 2001 has a lot of great qualities, and the very first reason was how it presented itself. That marketing. I may have been too young to really notice it, but from what I hear, it was really something. McDonald's toys, comic books, the Man Nui online game. This is when LEGO really started using the World Wide Web to promote their toys. The marketing gave Bionicle this strange, mysterious, but also alluring awe to it, creating a truly immersive world and theme that made young children like myself want to get into it. The story, while fairly simple, was also complex at the same time. From the stories of the Matoran to the Toa's individual adventures, a lot happened in Bionicle's first year. This was the first year to have some sort of treasure hunt, which was quite a common theme throughout Bionicle's run. But since it was the first time Bionicle did this, it felt exciting to travel through the island of Man Nui looking for all these masks. It truly felt like an adventure. What helped is that we had enjoyable characters to go with on this journey. The Toa weren't the apex of characterization, but they were distinctive enough from one another and had defined personalities. Tahu was stoic and arrogant. Lewa was fun-loving and carefree. Gali was gentle and kind. Kopaka was cold and serious. Bahatu was friendly and calm, and Onuan was quiet and wise. I must also commend Makuta. While I believe he became a better villain overall as the series progressed, even from the beginning you could feel his presence. His Rahi had caused a lot of harm to the island of Man Nui and were a constant threat to our heroes. And when the Toa went to confront him, we didn't even see his true power. Even if we knew very little about him, we still feared him, and that's a sign of a great villain. Of course, I should also give my praise to the sets. Outdated when compared to today's construction figures? Yes. However, for the time, there was a lot to like about these figures. They were colorful, distinctive, and had action features galore. When compared to Bionicle's predecessors, this was definitely a step up. Even if a lot of the sets were pretty much clones of one another, with very similar builds, a lot of them still had enough distinctiveness from one another, from the colors to the masks to the weapons to other details like Bahatu having an upside down body. Rahi, to me, are some of the most interesting sets, with a heck of a lot of complexity to their builds and had distinctive looks. Even if I still find it weird that the Muwaka and Kane Ra had treads for back legs. Talk about early installment weirdness when compared to other Rahi. 2001 was a great year, believe me, one I absolutely respect. But that's the key word. Respect. Not love, not enjoy, respect. I want to be honest with you. I never experienced 2001. I got into Bionicle at the tail end of 2002, so my memories of the franchise kicked in around that time. The closest I ever got to experiencing 2001 firsthand was the first Bionicle Chronicles book and trying several of the early video games years later. That's it. With almost every other year, I got to experience the theme for myself, create memories that I could cherish. I can't really do that with 2001. And I know that sounds petty, but I never really grew to love 2001 like I did with the others. And if I didn't grow to love something, then should I really put that above the years I have a deeper connection with? Now, I could take the time to go back and enjoy what G1 had to offer. I read the comics and I played part of the Mananui online game, both of which were pretty good. However, I don't have as much incentive to get the toys. Whenever I get LEGO sets nowadays, I usually have them for display before taking them apart for parts. So if I had to pick between the newer sets with more pieces that I will likely use and older sets with not as many pieces I can find use for, I will go for the newer sets. Seriously, how many mocks have you seen that use the Mata body? Yeah, I know, comparing old stuff to new stuff with more tech behind it. Classy. But that's just how I feel. I hope you at least understand where I'm coming from. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna spend the rest of this countdown in my special underground bunker where no one will be able to kill me for this placement. Good thing I added to that bunker, because people are really gonna hate me for this. Yes, I just put 2015, the front runner of the mediocre Bionicle G2, before the classic, the almighty 2001. Blasphemous! And honestly, I can't blame you. But there is one major reason why 2015 is at least a little bit higher. I actually experienced it. I actually had memories with it. Good ones, in fact. Now, before we go into why I actually enjoyed 2015, I should go over its flaws, as it's only fair. Yes, the characters were pretty much dyed versions of the G1 counterparts. And even if they weren't like Pohatu Dundee, they still weren't that interesting. The descriptions on Bionicle.com tried giving the Toa quirks and personality traits, but very little of that showed up in the other media, especially the webisodes. And frankly, those weren't very good. And not just with the fact that only one voice actor was used. Trust me, everyone else is already pointing that out. Frankly, everything about these just felt cheap. The animation was just too simple for my liking. The action sequences were hardly dynamic. And the best moments I only considered decent because of the memes that spawned from them.
I didn't slip.
You keep telling yourself that, Kopaka. The internet knows everything. The story was alright. Harkening back to 2001, it followed the Toa as they collected the golden mask of power to stop Makuda's forces. It was simple and could be considered trite, but since this was a story for a new generation and the theme in general conveyed itself to be more simple than G1, I think I'm more forgiving towards it. Is it a great story? You know. The Toa weren't nearly as enjoyable to be around and most of the villains were a joke. The worst thing that I can say is that, unlike 2001, the Toa don't feel like they learned to work together, with the exception of maybe against the Lord Skull Spiders. Even when taking down Colta, it's basically, hold them down at the same time until Bootleg Mananui saves our butts! Compare that to the Toa fighting the Shadow Toa in 2001. The Toa actually had to work together to take their shadow forms down, use their abilities to assist one another. Perhaps it's from how limited these webisodes feel, but I got nothing out of the G1 Toa's supposed unity. Now, if there is one saving grace, it's the sets. Most of them. I have to respect G2 for trying to solve the debate between form and function, giving us the best of both worlds. Not only could these sets be posed in a numerous amount of ways, but the new gearboxes allowed for action features that kids would love to mess around with, just like the good old days. I think one thing I appreciated the most about this combination of systems is that the arms don't just flop around when your hands aren't moving the gears. Unless the weapons are heavy enough, the arms will stand up no matter where they stop rotating. Even the sets without gearboxes had some sort of function, like the Protector's blaster weapons and the Skull Basher's arms. I honestly like the looks of a lot of these too, especially the updates to the classic Toa. They all look so vibrant and distinct from one another with different pieces, colors, and even body types in the case of Onua. Honestly, save for the price inflation, even though technically these guys have more parts than the original Toa, but I digress, I would argue these Toa are an improvement over the Toa Mata just in terms of set design, although that's most likely due to newer technology. I'm not gonna say these new sets are perfect. I already hinted at Skull Scorpio, and some of the protectors really could have been improved with some friggin' elbows. But still, for me at least, the sets were the best part about G2, and since LEGO is a toy line first, I'd argue that it makes 2015 at least somewhat decent. But again, everything else was lackluster at best, which is why it's not any higher. That and the fanboys would kill me more. Let's not dwell on that anymore, shall we?